Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's Acronis Cyber Protect virtual conference, Defeating Cybercriminals in 3 Moves, Improving Security, Adding Automation, and Cutting Costs. I'm your host, James Slaby. I'm the Director of Cyber Protection at Acronis. We've got a packed agenda and some fantastic keynote speakers and panelists to share with you today. But first, a couple of housekeeping rules. Conference is being recorded. We will send you a link via email afterwards so that you can share the recording with friends and colleagues that weren't able to attend the live event today. We'll have several opportunities to answer live questions from the audience. Please use the Zoom Q&A interface to submit those questions. We probably won't be able to get to everyone's question live on the air, but we promise that if we don't, we will follow up with an answer directly with you after the event. All right, let's get right to it. Oh, I should probably first mention that the event is being protected by Acronis Cyber Protect. We've got some specific features to protect the security and privacy of Zoom, and we are using those today. I wanted to take you through a few statistics that we uncovered with a report that we did recently called the Acronis Cyber Readiness Report. We surveyed 3,400 IT professionals, both IT business leaders and remote workers, about their experiences in struggling with their IT and cybersecurity issues during the pandemic. And here are just a few stats from the report. 31% of companies detecting at least one cyber attack per day, and many others detecting multiple attacks per day, with a significant proportion of them getting Zoom bombed and suffering other attacks on their collaboration services that suddenly everyone was relying on in the pandemic. Phishing remains the most frequent vector for cyber attacks, both in malicious websites and in email attachments and links, though few companies reported having important countermeasures like URL filtering in place, and despite the fact that 10% of workers had clicked on a malicious website. For example, there were hundreds of thousands of coronavirus-themed websites purporting to offer good information, but actually just delivering malware. No surprise that a large proportion of businesses saw their costs jump. Few companies were prepared to shift to remote work the way we all had to do, and a big 31% of those folks having significant extra unanticipated IT costs. We encourage you to go get that report. It's full of great information and it's complimentary. So moving on to the agenda here, keynote speakers and our 2 expert panels will spend the next couple of hours going over some of the issues that we highlighted in that report. We're going to start off with the CEO and founder of Acronis, Serguei Beloussov, who in addition to founding Acronis is also the founder of the Schaffhausen Institute of Technology, an international research-led institute located in Switzerland. Over to you, Serguei.
Thank you. Let me switch on my presentation real quick. So today we are launching Acronis Cyber Protect 15, which is our new generation product offered in our classic model through distributors and resellers to customers who want to buy it for on-premise. First, about Acronis. Acronis is a leader in cyber protection, which is artificial intelligence-powered cyber protection based on cyber cloud and cyber platform. We are based in Switzerland and Singapore, which gives us dual headquarters for dual protection, very important in the time of calamity. We are medium size and we are rapidly growing, especially with our new products. We have very broad reach to almost every large company in the world and through a very large network of partners. We only do business through partners to several 100,000 businesses and 5.5 million prosumers. And we are very committed to our global local presence, being present in every market where we are needed. We have 1,500 employees in 33 locations. We've done business in around 150 countries. We support over 30 languages, and we are committed to have data center presence for protection, compute, and storage, which you can use whether you're a classic customer or a cloud customer in the next 12 months next to you. We believe that digital world is what is surrounding us more and more, and digital workloads are very easy to copy and modify. And so they are very fragile if not protected. They require protection. And protection is facing those 5 challenges. First of all, it's becoming very difficult to protect the very large number of devices which are based in very large number of locations because of the rapid growth of IT on the edge and on the endpoint. We're talking about 50 billion devices to 500 billion devices by 2030, out of which at least 10% require strong protection, and that is based in, say, several hundred million or billion locations. We're also talking about the challenge of cost, because the amount of devices and the amount of data is growing 10x over 10 years. And so if you don't manage your cost, you can have a real issue in paying for protection. Then, of course, security is something which is no longer something you read in the media, but something which happens to your friends, to your family, to your partners, to your customers, to your vendors, because security in cybercrime has been industrialized, because security, the cybercriminals use artificial intelligence and all the latest tool, and it's really a new industry. Then privacy is a major issue. Today, everything in the world is digital. Digital workloads are extremely easy to copy. And so unless you control access to your digital data, you don't know who knows what about you and how they can leverage the data to manipulate your behavior. And of course, today we cannot live without IT. Even this conference is impossible without IT. We believe that the only solution to all these challenges is integrated and autonomous cyber protection. And that is our mission in Acronis, to protect all data, applications, and systems. And that is not just safety, so that nothing is lost, there is always a copy, and not just accessibility, where you can access everything from anywhere at any point of time, but also privacy, so you can control who accesses what and when, and you can manage the access right. Also authenticity, making sure that your data and application and system are not modified, and also security protection against bad actors. And the only way you can deliver ease of use, total cost of ownership, security control, and reliability to the required level if you provide it in a single product. There is also a lot which we've learned from the recent time with COVID-19 about importance of different parts of biological protection. There is a lot of similarity between biological and computer threats. Just like in biological threats, you need to do prevention, detection, response, recovery, and forensic. If any of the part of these 5 parts of staying protected are not working, your protection is not efficient. You can easily see it by the different performance of the countries in the light of COVID-19. And the same relates to your computer workload. The same relates to your computer workload across all of the vectors of Acronis cyber SAPAS: safety, accessibility, privacy, authenticity, and security. You need to first make sure that you prevent the possible failure or possible threat as much as possible. You need to monitor and detect the threat happening in real time. You need to respond in real time whenever possible. And if it wasn't possible, you need to be able to recover. And extremely important to have enough information to be able to do forensic. Only that way you can figure out what happened and prevent it from happening again. And because of that, Acronis now offers a single product, autonomous integrated modular cyber protection for everybody. Really, we are a company which has one product, Acronis Cyber Protect, which is integrated prevention, detection, response, recovery, and forensic for safety, accessibility, privacy, authenticity, and security. And it's available both as on-premise and as a cloud service. In fact, it is the same product on-premise, and it's the same product as a cloud service. This product is offered through Acronis Cyber Cloud, today used by service providers, but in the very near future used by both service providers and classic resellers to offer the product either as a service or as a license which you can install in your workload. Both Acronis Cyber Protect and Acronis Cyber Cloud are extendable, customizable, and integratable through Acronis Cyber platform. They are based on Acronis Cyber infrastructure, which enables it to be very cost efficient and very easy to use, reliable, secure, and it keeps control in the hands of the customer and the partner. So you can choose where you send your protection workload, whether it's protected on your premise, at partner premise, in Acronis, in the nearby data center, or somewhere in the cloud. And we augment it with Acronis Cyber Services, specifically Acronis Cyber Fit Academy, which is extremely important part of our strategy. Now, I want to stop on several important parts of Acronis technology. Acronis technology is based on a new generation autonomous artificial intelligence-based technology, which is patented. We file over 75 patents a year. So it's based on cyber learning, where we leverage human feedback and we leverage various smart sources from everywhere we can get information, including customer partner workloads. We also make sure that our system works equally well on the highly connected environment with fast internet connection, on an environment with a interruptible internet connection, and in air gap environment. And it can be deployed in such way in that it can be deployed on premise, in full, or at partner location, or in customer location. Cyber autonomous, cyber hybrid are quite unique parts of our technology. None of our competitors work equally well with and without internet connection, which is important for many edge and endpoint workloads, which are in air gap environment. Also, Acronis Cyber Engine includes Acronis Cyber Bus, which is an integration technology for the first time in the history of shipping data protection, security, and other products. We actually have all of these products in a single agent, single user interface, single UI, single product, and single technology. And all of this is achieved through Acronis Cyber Bus, which integrates it into a single product, which makes it so easy to use, so reliable, and so cost efficient. And again, all of this works not just for security. It really doesn't matter why your workload is not working. It has to work at all times. And we do it for also safety, accessibility, privacy, authenticity, not just security. So what is Acronis Cyber Protect? It's all-in-one protection designed for IT professionals. It is integrating proactive protection, where we do everything possible to prevent possible attack. Then active protection, where in real time, we can change your protection policy, and we can do continuous data protection. We can see and prevent malware, and we are definitely at all time proactively protecting ourselves against the bad guys, which makes it always possible to recover no matter what happened. But in addition to that, which is what is new for security, we also integrate reactive protection. In the modern world, the system failures and security breaches do happen from time to time, and it's extremely important to be able to very quickly recover with minimal downtime, and to be able to do very, very thorough forensic investigation to be able to do prevention, detection, response, and recovery better next time. We also are designed for integration with an ever-growing number of workloads, whether you are an MSP or whether you're an IT professional at a company. It is extremely important to have a single product, and that not only relates to the product we supply, but also to the other products you integrate with, and to customize it to your environment with various tools. And at all times, we worry about productivity, a number of workloads which you can effectively and efficiently manage by a single IT professional. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Acronis Cyber Protect Security. Acronis Cyber Protect Security is really integrated set security, which is unique set of technology for edge and endpoint protection in a single product. So first of all, it includes core anti-malware technology, which is both signature-based and next-generation engines for real-time and on-demand scans, and a number of technologies inside this core anti-malware technology, despite its relatively traditional, are quite advanced and new. And considering the current context, we wrote our engine over the past less than 7 years, mostly on the past 3 years. So it's a very, very modern, probably the most modern security engine you can find. Then it includes full advanced artificial intelligence-based security, which is used again for a variety of things in security. Then it includes preventive security, which is also AI-based, we believe that in most cases, if you manage your workload correctly, you prevent a lot of the attacks. Now, the important thing is modern security is impossible without management. Main thing you need to do when you want to prevent security attack and when you want to detect and respond and when you need to recover is you need to manage your security policy. You need to manage that number of workloads and large number of security installations. And so security management is integrated in our product. It is designed as a single product to do complete protection. And very, very important differentiation is that it's a product which integrates backup in security. And so at any point of time, you can always recover and you can offload a lot of operations, such as, for example, our deny list and offline backups scanning, such as patching images of recovery or deep scan of images in the backup. And so on and so forth in backup. You can also leverage metadata storage in backups where you can store unlimited amount of metadata from the operation of your workload. And so if anything happens, you have a full record of what have actually happened in a protected backup. So again, there are some things which are standard and sophisticated. There are a number of unique advantages which are only present in Acronis CyberProtect. So these are the advantages: automatic instant recovery. With Acronis, we are not limited to the small amount of cache like most of our competitors, or rather all of our competitors. We can, at any point of time, figure out that something wrong is going on. Even in case we are not sure, we can then switch on continuous data protection and keep all of your data safe and backup. And if something actually has happened, no matter how large is the amount of data which was affected, we can automatically restore it with minimal downtime. That is quite a unique advantage, especially in the light of ransomware attacks. And we have no dependency on connectivity. Our customers and partners are very often exist in the environments where connectivity is not always present. And the bad guys may leverage the time when the connectivity is not present to make the attack. And even in many cases, our customers exist in an environment where they need to switch off connectivity, like on the factory floor or in other air-gap environment. Our technology is designed in such ways that it works equally well with on and off connectivity. And in fact, with off connectivity, it does self-improvement and autonomous learning. Then forensic scans in backups is super important to be able to figure out what happened. Most of the modern security attacks are socially engineered. They are no longer happening at once, they're happening over a period of time. The bad guys make a special effort to delete any trace about themselves. Only by storing data in real time and signing it with Acronis Notary and protecting it with Acronis CyberProtect, you can have enough data to do quick and automatic forensic investigation, even in case it was just an endpoint which was attacked. And quite often today, endpoint is where the bad guy is entering the system. Then we can, because we run on the system, we can run in real time and we can do application level, like we do with Zoom on this call, protection, where we are not protecting your infrastructure, not protecting your system, but we understand the application logic and we try to make sure that we limit your capability to execute as little as possible, but provide fine-grained protection. And finally, we provide complete multi-layer detection. As it's described on this slide, all-in-one protection in a single product. So we have all these layers of protection. There are two unique layers: self-protection and recovery from backup, which is something which is only available from us. There are some vendors on the market which have some of the capabilities. Many of the vendors provide those capabilities as separate product. Very important advantage of Acronis security capabilities is that we have extreme expertise in low-level I/O, both in terms of memory and disk, and we can see many more events in much more fine-grained way. And again, very important difference for Acronis is that we have integrated protection of Acronis agents and backups, which is a primary target for many of the bad guys to attack when they enter the system. Now, I wanted to give you some several examples. Garmin, we believe, paid about $10 million to the bad guys. We believe we would have successfully prevented the voiced locker at multiple levels. So first of all, on the level of anti-malware scan engines and on AI-based static analyzers and on behavioral protection. So even from the detection standpoint, the attack which happened to Garmin wouldn't have happened. Now, even in case we wouldn't have stopped some particular ransomware, we could have recovered from backup automatically, and the downtime wouldn't have been 10 days, and the payment wouldn't be, and the loss wouldn't be any near to 10 million. This is just 10 million of payment. We believe there is much more loss of business. Another example, 9 machines in Xerox, which were infected by zero-day maze ransomware. So 2 were not patched sufficiently. If Acronis Cyber Protect would have been installed, 9 machines would have recovered immediately. 2 machines would have recovered from cloud within 1 year, 1 hour. And so basically you would have 2 hours downtime on 2 machines. So altogether 2 hours, we believe it's around $100 loss. CrowdStrike and Commvault, which is to some extent market leaders in their field, even though Commvault would have protected backups, it would have taken about 33 hours of downtime and 88 hours of recovery time. And so, notably, CrowdStrike didn't detect this ransomware even after 25 days. Now, if you want to use something less advanced and more conventional like Webroot and Vim backup, not only ransomware wouldn't be detected, not only 11 machines would be locked out, but the backups would have been deleted and no data recovery would be possible. And the loss would be about $200,000. And here's another example with 3 ransomwares. We believe we have by far the best detection on ransomware today than anybody in the industry, that is both in terms of false positive and false negative. So we would have stopped Ragnar Loka, Silop, Doppelpaymer immediately. Only Acronis would have done it. The other guys on the slide, Bitdefender, CrowdStrike, Kaspersky, Microsoft, Sentinel-1, Symantec, Trend Micro, Webroot, would have only been able to stop some of it. And the best result, for example, for Ragnar Loka is Bitdefender, but he wouldn't work for Silop and Doppelpaymer. Only with Acronis you would have gotten all of this stopped. And so that is the way we think about our security solution. We believe today endpoint and edge point are very much needing protection, and they need to be protected in many cases stronger than your data center infrastructure. Data center infrastructure is already protected, is already surrounded by perimeter security, is already protected by network security and on-device security. Now, the only way to stay protected is to provide complete solution, and that is our intention in Cyber Protect. Cyber Protect includes all the traditional security today, and within short period of time, Cyber Protect, a subscription product, every user of Cyber Protect will get all these things in a single product, including advances like in endpoint detection and response and zero trust assessment and management, and the 2 absolutely unique things, Cyber Protection Recovery Manager, which is important even if you have a stateless workload on the machine where you don't have much data on the machine. When you recover it, you still need to configure it, and it can be very quick or it can take some time. And then includes Cyber Protection Manager, Protection Forensic Manager, which allows you to do automatic forensic figuring out what has actually happened. And again, that's the only way to prevent it from happening again. So Cyber Protect is a very new product. We released it as a cloud product only 6 months ago, and we released it as a classic product only right now, but it's already recognized by top security alliance and test and certifications. Within a short period of time, we believe we'll be in top 5 in all these lists. All of these guys have already tested the product, accepted the product, and we perform extremely well in most of the tests. With that, I want to point out that with the product, we offer a free tool, which is called CyberFit Assessment Tool. It's available from go.acronis.com/score URL. And with that tool, we can measure CyberFit workload, CyberFit level of the workload, CyberFit level of the customer, which is related to customer infrastructure, CyberFit level of the partner and countries, and we will proactively promote it with various sports partnerships which we have. Today we have Williams Racing talking on this event. We also partner with Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and many other sport teams. We believe cyber protection is a basic human right. We believe every person, every organization, and every workload need to be fully cyber protected with a maximum cyber fit score. So what to do next? Really just get cyber fit with Acronis Cyber Protect. Get your cyber fit score. Cyber fit score will accurately predict you if you have significant risk to your workload. Believe it or not, with low cyber fit score, it's just a matter of time when you will have a problem. Download the product. The product can be downloaded and installed on all devices. If you're a partner, get to know more about the product, get trained about the product, protect your customers, employees, friends, and family. Again, the cyber attacks and cyber failures are only something which is happening to everybody, and without your IT infrastructure, you can no longer do anything. You cannot talk to your family, you cannot talk to your colleagues, you cannot talk to your friends, you cannot order food. So everything should work at all time. And one thing we encourage our classic partners to do is to become a managed service provider. Managed service provider is a great business model, and it's a great value you can offer to your customers, because that's the best way to keep your customers and your customer workload cyber fit. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Sergey. If I can keep you around for another minute, I'd like to bring a couple of audience questions to you. This is one we get a lot at these events. How do you respond to people who are afraid that integrating everything into one solution the way Acronis is could create a single point of failure?
Well, I don't know how to respond to this. I mean, integrating everything into one solution could respond to a single point of failure. However, the main problem with having multiple solutions is that having many points of failure is not really a good idea. Because with security and with protection, any of those points of failure is a single point of failure. It really doesn't matter what failed, whether you have a failed backup, whether you have a failed security, whether you have failed vulnerability assessment. And the problem is that the solutions without integrations, they are not aware of each other. And so they are quite often not configured in consideration of each other. And they're quite often not configured in full. And in fact, in many cases, because there are so many of them to configure, many of them are not configured at all. And so, you know, again, it's sort of, think about if you are actually wearing a, you know, bulletproof vest. So bulletproof vest create a single point of failure. If somebody wants to kill you, they have to point into some specific point, but it's better to wear bulletproof vest than to have many points of failure.
Yeah, it seems like there are other trade-offs that we've heard about from our partners that make the integration quite worthwhile. The reduction of agents, the better integration of functions on the remote endpoint.
Ultimately, the security and protection is all about the management. If you follow the right routine, and if you follow the right configuration, and if you follow the right patch level, just like with COVID-19, you keep yourself healthy, you actually wash your hands, and you watch where you go, you can stay healthy. But it's just very difficult to do it if you need to do it a lot of times on a lot of workloads with very limited resources. And that's what we enable with Acronis Cyber Protect. We're enabled to make it very easy.
All right, I know you're a busy guy. If I can keep you on the line for one more question here. Do you think that artificial intelligence will one day be smart enough to block all cyber attacks automatically?
This is a very philosophical question, and it comes to the point, will artificial intelligence be smarter than humans? And at the moment, we don't know exactly how human brain works, and so we don't know if the artificial intelligence will be similar to humans, smarter than humans. But as long as it is not as smart as humans, it is about whether humans come up with new ways to make life of other humans difficult. And in the past 100,000 years, humans were always able to make it. And so in my opinion, it's a never-ending battle between good and bad. And I don't see this battle being completed in the next, 25 years, but, I don't really know what happens with AI later.
Right. Given equal tools, it always seems like attackers have the edge anyway, yes?
Yeah, attackers, they live in the dark, so you don't know what they do. The good guys, unfortunately, have to have such launches and have to release products, and our product has been in many months of beta program, and so of course one of the users of the product is the good guys, but the bad guys also look at the product. So it's a continuous battle. Lucky for us today, the bad guys are not as sophisticated as good guys. They don't have the same level of resources, the same level of tools. And so again, most of the time, if you use professional tools like Acronis Cyber Protect and you follow the right guidelines, you are reasonably safe.
All right. Thanks so much for that, Sergey. We'll let you go now. Audience, I would like your attention, please, to a quick poll. It's designed here to get a handle on your experience of ransomware attacks. Very clearly, the single largest, fastest growing, most profitable threat that the bad guys are doing, prosecuting. You're going to hear from a panel a little bit later today of manufacturing folks who have particularly come under that kind of scrutiny from cyber criminals with ransomware attacks because their costs of downtime are so high, perhaps the highest in the industry, and therefore they've got great incentive to get back online again, and sometimes paying the ransom is the best way to do that. I'm going to let that run for just a few seconds more, and then we'll move on to our next section. All right, that's been running for a minute. So interesting results. Nearly a third of no evidence of an attempted attack. I hope that means that there's not something lurking below the surface that you're not aware of yet. We have evidence of unsuccessful attacks. Another good third of the respondents saying they've caught some phishing emails or managed to, they've got evidence of attack that did not happen. A few that, a smaller number that an attack was initiated, but they managed to contain it. Smaller percent still that they were able to recover from without paying, hopefully with the help of something like Acronis. I know that's a big part of our active protection solution and cyber backup that helps you recover from attacks transparently. And then an attack succeeded and we had to pay the ransom to recover fully 4% of respondents. I got to believe that there are many more ransomware attacks out there that that go unreported because it's kind of a public relations fiasco for a company to admit that they've been attacked. All right, with that, I'd like to move on to our next segment here. We've got a tremendous analyst from IDC, one of the big three in tech research companies here in the US, where Frank Dickson is based. Frank is the Program Vice President for Security and Digital Trust at IDC. He leads a team that covers a huge swath of security technologies: network security, endpoint security, cybersecurity analytics, intelligence, response and orchestration, identity and trust, legal risk and compliance, data security, IoT security, and cloud security. That's a big team he's got there. Frank himself has his own research area where he focuses on endpoint security, identity and access management, authentication, threat analytics, and protection of architectures and business processes as they undergo digital transformation. Quite a background, and I think you'll find what he has to say about going forward with IT operations and cybersecurity as we get through the pandemic will be very interesting. So we'll hand it over to you, Frank.
Fantastic. Hey, thanks a lot. Hey, I do know that I wasn't the guy that was originally supposed to be here. My expert on data security, Robin Westervelt, was going to be here. She's unexpectedly out of the office, but I'm more than happy to jump in, right? Because this is a theme I tend to talk about a lot, right? Because if we think about what we're doing moving forward, if we can go to the next slide, right, there's very much this theme going on within all of IT, and this is rethinking. And so as we were going through our futurescape discussions, which is basically we prognosticate what we think is going to happen in the future, we put together, you know, all these prognostications at IDC as we're talking about security, right? You'll see one of these on the board, and it's like, you know, by 2022, budgets for modern defined, you know, secure access solutions such as software-defined perimeter will quadruple as companies rethink their approaches to remote access, as flaws in legacy VPN remote access-centric solutions are illuminated by the massive work-from-home migrations. And as I presented this, my peers in other technologies and other groups, such as cloud, such as work at home, such as compliance, there was this constant theme. Everybody's having this constant concept called rethink. So if we think about this concept of rethinking, if we can move forward to the next slide, you know, this rethinking premise extends to security, right? Work at home migrations and COVID, it didn't really do anything different. It caused us to go, whoa, and step back and rethink. And instead of like that incremental process to addressing security, what it did was make us realize, hey, our environment has changed and maybe the way we were doing things wasn't the right way to do it, right? Because if you think about complexity, if we go to the next slide, security by default is a complex beast, right? And if we think about it, you know, here are the 5 key drivers, right? We talk about the sophistication of cyber miscreants growing, right? And it's only getting stronger and more complex and smarter. Serguei went into some really great examples of, you know, some of the tricks that ransomware pulls, right? And as we look to defend against, you know, that malware, we're seeing this proliferation of security tool sets, right? Let's throw more technology at the problem. And of course, as we're throwing more technology at the problem, the environment's changing, right? So different devices, phones, tablets, computers, right? On-prem, in the cloud, hybrid cloud, right? It's going everywhere, which kind of results in this, what we call the death of perimeter. No longer is our people and data and applications all on-prem, right? We've got people outside the prem, people inside the prem, data outside the prem, applications outside the prem, right? So the perimeter has died, and we've got this continued growth of compliance regulations, right? And it's not like we can think about security just in a vacuum, right? Because we don't control the world, right? If we think about the way that we look at the environment, if we go to the next slide, right? Really what's going on is security is the tail, and what's wagging the tail is the dog, and that dog is digital transformation, right? How we are injecting technology into our processes to increase our ability to deliver empathy at scale to our customers, right? To decrease costs, to improve our agility, right? And as we look at this hyper connectivity driven by this digital transformation, IDC really doubled down on this. And if we want to look at some of the ways that we're describing this digital transformation, if we can go to the next slide, right? IDC in 2019 outlined these agendas for this digital transformation. And as we look at, you know, this digital transformation goes in many different themes, right? Delivering empathy at scale, delivering trust, delivering connectivity, ensuring experiences, right? And this isn't just analyst speak, right? We actually went and verified this. So at the beginning of the year, what we did was survey our end users. If we can go to the next slide, and we said, hey, CEOs, do these agenda items link to where you're going? And you'll see the vast majority of CEOs validate that, yes, they have initiatives associated with trust. Yes, they have initiatives associated with how work is changing. Yes, they have initiatives associated with how connectivity is changing, right? And all of these critical items are what's creating this environment, as Serguei talked about, complexity, right? And remember, our fundamental component there, or our fundamental premise, is complexity is the enemy of security. Now, as we think about the way that these agendas are changing, if we go to the next slide, right? I'm reminded of a guy by the name of Rube Goldberg, right? And so what Rube Goldberg was, he was a cartoonist, he was a sculptor, he was an engineer, but he really had these creative cartoons about connecting dissimilar systems that weren't necessarily meant to be connected, right? To create some sort of, address some sort of remedial task. In this cartoon, right, we show the self-operating napkin, right, of all of these systems that are now connected to create this self-operating napkin. Now, if we think about this cartoonist, right, yes, it's funny. Yes, it's somewhat satirical. But if we go to the next slide, we'll note that, that's digital transformation, right? What we're doing is connecting operations and HR and sales in these interconnected systems by which the things that weren't previously meant to be connected are now connected. And those connections aren't exactly perfect, right? Because all of these connections are essentially done with an API. And if one half of that API breaks, both halves break, right? And if we have cascading APIs, when one breaks, we can bring down the whole system. So this idea of digital transformation increases our complexity. Now, when we look at digital transformation, as in talking about how it relates to COVID, if we go to the next slide, right, we talk about digital transformation, it's human reality. The quote of the Microsoft CEO is, hey, we've done 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months, right? And this is very much the reality, right? The COVID has now taken and thrown gasoline on the fire of digital transformation. But digital transformation isn't just about taking the existing timeline and making it go faster. COVID has fundamentally caused us to rethink the way that we're approaching this, right? Because in times of crisis, we rethink what we're doing. So at the beginning of the year, in January, we surveyed all our CEOs. We said, hey, what's most important to you, right? Digital trust programs, digital infrastructure, workplace transformation. Those are really big, right? And all of a sudden we get to a time of crisis and we go, whoa, 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 whoa. Those move down to the bottom. So what's changed? Well, the new things are about resilient operations, about customer experience programs, right? When you get into a time of crisis, what do you worry about? Let's make sure we can deliver offerings. Let's make sure that our customers are happy. Data, right? Because as we talked about this digital transformation loop, the fuel of digital transformation is all about data. And of course, connectivity, right? So this COVID isn't just about accelerating digital transformation. It causes us to rethink, right? Everything that we're doing, rethink this whole approach to the complexity that Sergei talked about in the initial keynote. Now, the other thing is we look about these reminders, right? If we go to the next slide, right? COVID all of a sudden forced us to rethink our threats, right? When Sergei was talking about ransomware, maybe we were a little bit passé before COVID. After COVID, we go, oh my gosh, what are our threat vectors? How am I now, with everybody at home, right? What am I vulnerable to, right? And this was a very interesting study. So we launched this study on March 23rd, before the COVID thing hit, right? And I thought like, oh my gosh, my results are gonna be totally trashed. Exact opposite, right? Half of the results for this study came before COVID hit the fan. Half of these studies hit after, and it really forced us to start rethinking what's important, rethinking our priorities, right? All of a sudden we go, oh, ransomware is important, right? After COVID hit, we go, oh my gosh, right? I am very vulnerable to ransomware. I am very vulnerable to phishing. I am very vulnerable to business email compromise. The front lines of our businesses against this cyber miscreant, we're reminded that they've changed, right? We were reminded that we are no longer on-prem. Now, we think, hey, everything's going to go back to normal. But if we think about the reality, if we go to the next slide, the reality is different, right? When we ask people, about working from home, about 6% of people were remote before COVID. After COVID, we're now looking at, like 53% are remote. And by the way, in 2021, we asked people, hey, is everybody going to come back to the office? The answer is no. It's not going to go back to the way it was. Things are fundamentally different. The complexity that you're looking at, the complexity that we're telling you you need to rethink is not going to change. So if we go to the next slide, there's a couple of key themes that we want to hit about this expanding attack surface, right? In this new reality, and maybe it's not a new reality, but it's that we realize that our reality is fundamentally changed, right? We're noticing that there's a whole lot of things different. Companies are deploying more mobile devices. Companies are now encouraging work from home. Companies are now employing, more agile IT. These are not things that are new. They are things that, we realize now that, oh my gosh, we have this complexity and it's accelerating. So those of you who are on the other end watching this, right, you're dealing with this complexity and you need to be rethinking the way that you fundamentally approach security and IT to deal with this complexity. And it's important to note, this problem isn't something that you can just solve with more bodies, right? Because if we go to the next slide, one of the themes that we've been talking about for a long time are the skill shortages, right? As we look, there will be 10.5 million additional full-time equivalent employees needed over the next 5-year period. Almost 10% of those are in security, right? You just can't go, hey, I have a security problem and I'm going to throw bodies at the problem. And oh, by the way, COVID didn't help that. If we go to the next slide, you'll see that as we asked people what skills you needed to help, deal with this talent issue after the first wave of the economic recovery after COVID, right? Cybersecurity still remains one, but you're noticing some themes there, right? IT operations, digital innovation, right? Companies are now needing to respond, and you're seeing some other themes come in. It's more than just security. It's about product reliability. It's about technology innovations. Companies are recognizing that they fundamentally need to do things differently. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is one of my favorite slides, right? And this is a gentleman by the name of Theodore Levitt. He was the editor of the Harvard Business Review, right? And he said something I think is profound, right? He said, people don't want a 1/4 inch drill. They want a 1/4 inch hole, right? And as we in security tend to focus on the problem, we tend to focus on the wrong problem. We tend to focus on, hey, we need another endpoint security, or we need EDR tools, or we need more SIM. We tend to focus on product. The problem is not a product problem. As we talk about rethinking our approach to security, it's not a product problem, it's a security problem. So as we rethink it, it's not about throwing more tech at the issue, it's about addressing the fundamental problem. Now, as we look at dealing with the fundamental problem is complex. If we go to the next slide, right, we have this numerous numbers of complexity, right? We have high-risk data channels like internet access points, lost or stolen smartphones, employee remote access, Wi-Fi sniffing of endpoints, email leakage, right? The number of channels is high, right? If we look at high-risk data types, secrets, encryption keys, passwords, credit card data, personally identifiable information, right? Data is the heart of this digital transformation. Now, as we look at the next slide, right, here are the benefits, they're the key themes. This is the problem. This is how we define it. So as you start to rethink your approach to security, rethink it based upon this. So the problems that we're dealing with, malware, right? business email compromise, other sorts of issues. Now, as we do that, we articulate the problem. We had a really interesting survey, right? And so as we were talking to people about their endpoint vendor of choice, we said, hey, how many of you have switched? And of those people that switched, we go, let's look at this data. So as you're rethinking your endpoint approach, what was the number one reason you would switch? And if we go to the next slide, the number one reason that people switched were to reduce the number of endpoint agents, right? As we rethink this approach to IT, right? As we rethink this approach to security, there's a number of quote unquote soft costs that ain't so soft, right? And you see that in this data as why people are switching vendors, right? Reducing the number of agents, reducing incident investigation time, improving prevention of zero-day attacks, right? Reducing the spread of malware, reducing the number of vendors, right? There's a ton of soft costs that if you get more strategic, if you rethink your approach, if you don't do what you did yesterday, because yesterday is no longer the reality, right? You can take the approach to be able to strategically do things better. Consolidation of agents, reduction of complexity. And as you reduce the complexity that sometimes is self-created, you create the ability to be able to deliver a higher level of security. So I've talked a lot about COVID. What does COVID mean moving forward? Well, there's a host of things, but here's the thing that I would tell you. Look at rethinking for the next normal, right? Don't rethink your approach to security. Rethink your approach to IT overall, because the more that we can integrate security into our IT, the more that we can, in fact, harden our infrastructure, the more that we can reduce complexity, the better off we are. Let's prevent the problem. Let's simplify. Let's reduce complexity. That will make our ability to implement security better, right? I always encourage people, focus on the 4 new control points: endpoint, identity, application, data. That is how you need to frame security moving forward. And of course, the last thing I would recommend is strongly look at retiring legacy IT approaches. They were born in an era that wasn't the reality of digital transformation. Digital transformation has fundamentally required a rethinking of our approach to security. And with that, hey, I just want to say thank you for the time. I realize that that there's other things you could be doing. I'm thrilled that you took the time to listen to me, and I thank Acronis for the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for that excellent data and insight there, Frank. I'd like to move right along to our next panel. We've got a fantastic group of experts dealing with the questions around cybersecurity, improving automation and reducing costs, which is something that we all have to deal with in uncertain economic times. If you're one of those lucky folks who's going to get a bigger budget next year, I congratulate you. I think most of us are going to be facing flat or possibly reduced budgets. So we all have to get smarter about how we address questions of cyber protection. So with that, I'm very pleased to introduce the moderator for this panel, Christelle Heikola of Arsenal Football Club, which is an Acronis CyberFit sports partner, and of course a storied Premier League franchise. At Arsenal, Christelle is the IT director, where she's responsible for technology across a very diverse business environment. I've gotten a look at that. It is an incredible diversity of applications that she has to support, from football analysis of on-pitch games to retail operations, the social media aspect. It's quite a challenge. Before Arsenal, Christelle was head of IT applications at health and beauty retailer Superdrug, and at Sainsbury's, the UK's 3rd largest supermarket chain, including later years in its newly created digital lab. Christelle started her career as a pharmacist, but moved on to Accenture to become a management consultant, which put her on her current path to superstardom in IT. Over to you, Christelle.
Thanks very much, James. And I, in turn, would like to introduce my panelists, starting with Candid. Candid is the VP for Acronis' cyber protection research. So he looks into the latest threats and protection methods. And I'm just going to highlight one thing about Candid that I thought was really, really interesting. He serves as an advisor to the Swiss federal government on cyber risks. Pretty impressive. Next up, we have Stephen Trommel. Stephen founded his own company actually in 2016. He is a CEO and GXP data integrity specialist at Proud Innovations. And if you're all wondering what is GXP, G stands for good, P stands for practice, and X is the area of good practice. And Stephen particularly supports data integrity for the pharmaceutical industry. Then we have Salim Ortani. Salim is the CEO of Certilink. He's a veteran engineer, security auditor, and advisor. And he has a lot of expertise in business continuity, DR, backup and recovery, and of course, cybersecurity. And he's worked at some great companies, including Acronis in the past. And then finally, last but not least, we have Zaidoun Arbad. Zaidoun is the COO of Starlink, and he brings nearly 2 decades of experience working in the Middle East, Turkey, and Africa. And as a COO, he's looked after lots of areas of operations like sales, finance, go-to-market strategy, and of course, cybersecurity. So we have a huge amount of expertise on this panel, so welcome, gentlemen. This takes me to my first question. So we heard from Frank earlier on. He talked about the death of the perimeter. So gone are the good old days when we had a single perimeter and a single location protecting all of our systems and our data. We're now in the world where we have to protect a lot more organizations, proliferation of devices, and obviously loads more apps, many of which are in the cloud as well as on our own networks. So my first question actually goes to Stephen. So what is your organization doing, Stephen, to support that shift in focus away from perimeter defense and actually focus more on protecting the data itself?
Thank you. Well, mainly what we do in general is focus on data itself, because we need to guarantee data's its integrity. And for us, the integrity of the data is more important than the outer perimeter. That's mainly done by another team, and we focus directly only on the integrity of the data, and because we need to guarantee that the data is not corrupted or changed or altered by either personnel or outside attacks. So yeah, we're talking about pharmaceutical data, so test data, laboratory data, medicine data. And yeah, there's a lot of money involved. So yeah, altering tests, changing the result, it can be beneficial to people or not beneficial. So that's why we focus mainly on the integrity of data. And we use, in this case, Acronis on-prem version. And yeah, we use pretty much every feature there is in Acronis to guarantee we have that integrity in the data. Yeah, that's pretty much what we do.
Thank you, Stephen. And moving on to Candid, could you say a few words on this topic? What's your view here?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely live in a work from anywhere world now, right? And you mentioned it, the identity is kind of the new perimeter. There's no kind of castle mouth anymore with crocodiles. That's definitely gone. So it has to be focused on the data. So you need to know, where is your data? Is it encrypted? Who's accessing it? So I think having the knowledge of where your data is, what's happening with it, and of course also kind of the access right management is key at the moment. And unfortunately, we've seen many companies moving to the cloud now without the knowledge and the expertise to secure the data. So we have Amazon S3 buckets, which are misconfigured, or Elasticsearch databases where everyone can access the data, and sometimes even including pharmaceutical data. So that needs to change. So you need to know where the data is, and then of course apply some policies to secure it.
Thank you. And I've got Salim nodding vigorously here. Salim, could you say a few words for us, please?
Well, I think he said the right words, Candid. So data has been moved for the flexibility and the ease of use for everybody nowadays with cloud solutions and so on, anytime, any place. The biggest concern is today that, and we've seen that in the past as well, that IT has almost no more control of what data is out there, how is it managed, how is it shared, who has still access on it, has the lifecycle management around the user and the data has been reviewed. So there are a lot of different aspects that can consider a risk, getting that exposed out there. And basically, yeah, then the question comes: risk versus budget. Where will you invest? And I think these questions need to be addressed by management, and based on that, do the right investment.
Thank you. And finally, Zaideen, what's your view? Can you hear me, Zaideen? Ah, there we go.
Yes, yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be with you today. Due to the paradigm shift in trends and with adoption of cloud computing, mobility, IoT, we have large number of devices connected to the internet. So the perimeter became less relevant, and the shift and the focus became more on the data protection. That's why our cybersecurity advisors are focusing on securing the data in use, in motion, at rest, and who accessed the data and when and how the data was accessed. And then where is it stored and how it was destroyed. So this is how we address that. So the focus today is about data protection as opposed to the legacy perimeter.
Thank you very much. So it's all about the data, guys. Right, let's move on to my next question, please, James. So this question is really about the fact that cyber attacks are growing in their sophistication. We've got what we call industrialized cybercrime. You know, state actors are becoming more influential, and we're seeing longer horizon, multi-pronged attacks. So it's very sophisticated. So my question to my panelists is really, what are you doing to try and deal with the fact that, you know, things are not getting easier? So I'm going to pose that question to Candid first of all.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely that we see more and more attacks happening, right? And it's kind of logic. We had the example with Wasted Locker, right? I mean, if they make 10 million from one ransomware attack, why would they stop? Right? I mean, there's a good reason for them to be persistent, to actually put up with the work, because it's profitable for them. So you need to have a layered approach, because just having one nice thing, which will not cut it, right? There's always a way around it. It could be through insider attacks. It could be through physical USB devices being dropped nearby. So you have to have multiple layers that give you the visibility and actually tell you what's happening. But all of those, as Sergei mentioned earlier on, has to be integrated, because it has to be efficient and hopefully also automated. Otherwise, you're just going to be under the water of the big wave coming against you. So I think you need to have a good approach with multiple layers, giving you the visibility of what's happening. And if you're unsure of where you stand, you can use stuff like the micro attack framework with the 12 steps of the attack kill chain, giving you kind of a chance to go through and define, oh, do I have a blind spot that I actually should fix? And then hopefully you can improve if your budget allows it.
Thank you, Candid. So all about having a multi-layered approach. So I'm going to ask the same question to Stephen, please.
Education under personnel is important too. We see what I see in my line of work is a lot of targeted attacks that take months of preparation from the attacker side, because as Candid said, it makes money. It pays well if you get in the right position. So they do recon. They know exactly when they decide to attack. They have access to the most core critical systems, and they just put you down completely. And then they know exactly who to mail, who to call. They go right to the stake as shareholders. They don't email system administrators. No, they know exactly where to go. And that's what I see a lot happening for the past 2-3 years is a lot of targeted attacks and on a very big scale, and it is scary sometimes, like how much information they can get. It's really scary sometimes.
And you made the point about education of users therefore being so important. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Celine,
Thank you.
could you give us your views on,
sure.
you know, how are you coping with this?
Yeah, so maybe just to give you an idea, in the last year and a half, I've been part of, let's say, escalating and setting up incident responses for companies, basically those that are being attacked. In these cases, we're talking about enterprise companies, worldwide deployments with 1,500 plus employees, where they have, let's say, the budget for good technology, for the best technology, the most expensive you can even, and still somehow they still get their business continuity and hold their stack encrypted from operations tools towards the payment systems. It became very crazy. The time to actually recover and come back to business in that one case specifically, and I'm not going on the name, but it has to do with the flight industry. This company was down about a month. After, and my point here is what a company that might not be experienced is they should create an incident response plan. It's a piece of paper, right, with some processes there. But as we all know, people, process, and technology comes together at one point. And having a good response plan will give you the following. On the moment you have an attack and there's panic, everybody is doing their own thing. There is no structure. You lose time. There is finger pointing, heads are falling. And this incident response plan will give you the ability basically to say, okay, we have stakeholders, we communicate this. We have our CEO and management, we communicate this. Infrastructure team needs to do this on that moment. PR, very important. What do we communicate? How do we communicate? So all these things need to be taken in aspect. So that's just my thought. And maybe last one on that. Corporate organizations are very lucky because they have more budget than the SMB market. I think the biggest advice I could give is to focus on these SMB companies or the smaller companies and the corporate, because they have lack of people. They have lack of the good processes. And I think also what a corporate organization has, which an SMB doesn't have, is cyber insurance. So they will protect themselves also with an insurance plan if they get ever a problem, that they will get refunded. So, yeah.
Thank you, Celine. So have a plan, but also your point is an interesting one. I think the smaller organizations do have a struggle because they have the same threats, but not necessarily, like you said, the same resources. So absolutely. And finally, Zaidoun, we've heard how scary it is out there at the moment. What's your advice?
We usually recommend to our customers to follow two strategies. First, the prevention, where they understand more the motives and who is attacking them, right? And the capabilities of those attackers, and then the indicators of the compromise in their systems. This helps in implementing a prevention control mechanism. And then we go to the recovery phase, where when prevention fails, at least you need to be able to recover from that situation. So how do we recover from the attack? This is where we need to ensure that all critical data is backed up regularly and the restored functionality is tested time and time again to ensure you can get your business up and running should the prevention methodologies and procedures you have implemented not work and you end up with an attack within your network.
So thank you, highlighting there the importance of data backup. Absolutely. James, let's move on to the next question, please. So we were talking about the growing sophistication of cyber attacks, but you could argue that technology and tools to fight those attacks are equally becoming more sophisticated. So for this particular question, I would like to go to Candid and ask you, how are you helping your customers take advantage of some of these new technologies like AI, like machine learning, like automation to help respond to cyber attacks?
Yeah, I mean, it's growing frequency, those attacks, right? Because the attackers are making use of machine learning as well and automation. So we've seen some attackers, for example, automatically generating spam and malicious spam templates, and then even using game theory as kind of a feedback loop to know which one has worked better and then automatically adapt to it. So if the attackers are using it, you should definitely make use of it on the defender side as well. So at Acronis, we have been working for multiple years with artificial intelligence and machine learning to kind of define, for example, base patterns. So you know what is actually normal behavior and what is kind of those abnormal outliers that you want to detect, right? And this goes for file detection before they're executed, so static analysis, but also on the behavior side, talking about ransomware attacks, right? If you have something that encrypts your data, it doesn't really matter if you have seen it before or not. You want to block it because that behavior is just not normal. So we're a big believer in providing those capabilities, but they have to be automatically kind of generating the results, and best even kind of reacting automatically, right? It's nice to have 1,000 alerts that you have been attacked, but it's even better if you don't have to care about those because you know they have already been resolved by the solution as well.
So thank you, Candid. Definitely trying to get rid of what I would call all of that noise by exploiting automation. Thank you very much. Let's move on to Stephen to talk about some of these technologies, because it sounds like it's actually cyber warfare out there to me as the attack has become more sophisticated. The people preventing those attacks have to become more sophisticated. Would you agree with that, Stephen?
Oh, I totally agree. We're not on that. I always say just make sure active protection is on because it works. I've seen it in real life. We had Ryuk 2 years ago, 16 months ago. Ryuk in worldwide a little bit, and a lot of virus protection didn't find it, and active protection did, which was for us lucky. In this case, it was perfect. It worked, and it was a real showcase in that case. But there's a lot of, I see there's on the enterprise level, there's a lot of investment in just new security software because, well, actually now there is investment after they are attacked or after something goes wrong. Most of the time, then they start investing and yeah, they get to certain companies that help them choose software solutions. But yeah, there's definitely a change on the market of advanced AI and artificial machine learning and automation technologies to help detect and defend. Yeah.
Thank you. And it sounds like actually we don't have any choice but to explore these new technologies. And then Salim, can you give me
maybe coming back to the technologies, I think what we've seen in the last years that a lot of technologies are following some frameworks. I do want to mention this also on this panel. So example, NIST framework, which is very good, let's say, guides to give more maturity to company, but also to technology to assist you through that process. The problem is for us, the knowledge. We are short skills on staff nowadays. Security experts are very expensive, so automation and machine learning of these processes is key. Example, what I've seen in the evolution also from Acronis. Acronis in the past was really just focused on protecting and recovery, right? That was a business model, I think, 10 years ago, let's say something like that. Today, they are actually covering the whole stack of the NIST framework from identify, protect, detect, response, and recover, but all of this in an automated way. So I think that's a big benefit moving forward to have these kind of solutions also to respond towards these attacks. Yeah.
Thank you. And you made a particularly interesting point, I think, around skills, because you need to be quite specialist to actually exploit these latest technologies. And we all know that there's a challenge to get skilled people in the market. And
maybe if I can add, Christelle, on. Yeah, just very short for your the awareness. I think I've seen a Gartner report on that. I'm not sure. By 2022, we will have a shortage of 1.8 million security experts. So that's quite impressive. Yeah.
It's quite a shocking statistic.
Yeah.
Saidin, how are you taking advantage, or what's your view in terms of exploiting these new technologies and getting the skills to understand how to exploit these new technologies?
Great question, by the way. And you know, in today's world, it's all about data and how you use the data in a meaningful way to help you make decisions and do better things for your business. So we are providing customers with a lot of solutions that uses artificial intelligence and machine learning, which enhances the organization's defenses against advanced cyber attacks, zero-day malwares and other things, which simultaneously gaining rapid insights into the effectiveness of the existing security measures and investments they made. Add to that the latest technology trends when it comes to machine learning and artificial intelligence are the most useful against detection and response of advanced cyber threats. So having the machine learning and the artificial intelligence in a threat hunting scenario, for example, gives added advantage to the security teams in a security operating center, for example, where they can respond timely and to shorten the resolution to the resolution time, which then limits the damage to the organization and it's going to limit the losses the organization is going to incur because of those kind of attacks. So today is not the traditional threat hunting that what's happening in a SOC. You'll find less number of analysts there, but more tools that will help them to be doing a better job in a more efficient way.
Oh, that's a great point to finish on. I think it is about efficiency, isn't it? Definitely. Right, on to my final question. And before I ask the question as such, I'm just going to tell you a little anecdote. I'm very good friends with a CISO of a very large paper company in Finland. And he and I, sometimes you might say sadly, do chat about technology. And he said to me, Christelle, good IT is good IT security. So in other words, you know, if you're not managing your IT operations and your IT in general properly, you're probably going to have poor IT security. And I think that really resonates. And obviously this question is about the fact that there has sometimes been IT operation department and maybe a cybersecurity department that are sometimes working at cross purposes. And I guess it does to a certain degree depend on how your particular organization is structured and what the reporting lines are in your particular organization. But I'm interested to hear experiences from my panelists and what your view is on this topic. Perhaps I'm not allowed to share my personal view, but I would, but I just think they're inextricably linked. That would be my view. But does anyone have a different view? Candid?
Yeah, I mean, you said it, usually IT security is kind of viewed as a business preventer and not really as a business enabler, which of course is not really helping you to do any good job. But I think in the end, security is a shared responsibility. It's the responsibility of everyone. So DevSecOps and everything has started because you need to integrate it in the overall process, and it should be there from the start. And then you can actually show that it is beneficial. So I think the 2 points I want to make is you have to start the dialogue with all the different teams. And of course, there is the factor awareness, education. So the other teams which are not really security aware, you should actually help them gain the knowledge that they know, oh, it actually makes sense to have that from the start so that everyone wants to have the same goal.
Thank you. So perhaps awareness, but also collaboration. Thank you. And Salim.
I do have to say, I always agree with you, Kenneth. Very good points. I think the awareness is very key. And I'm talking about awareness from the employees towards the IT staff to the whole organization is very important. What I've seen in the past, and I think from my angle, Christelle, I can talk about this. CISOs and CIOs, and mainly in bigger organizations, we've seen CISO roles coming up in the last years because we've seen the responsibility that actually comes with that role. The thing is, in some organizations, still a problem today, I think, and that's my point of view, is that some CISOs or security managers need to report to a CIO. And I see a conflict of interest there. Basically, CIO needs to do the patching with the infrastructure team and all that stuff. But if there are compliance problems or there is stuff that needs to be done for whatever regulation or insurance, the CISO will actually enforce and review that and say to his management, let's say the board of directors, that the CIO maybe would not have done his proper job with his with his team. So I see segregation of duties is very important to have these two different groups. But it's also important to have a good collaboration and synchronization to have the same goal to bring the maturity of the company higher. So yeah, that's very short my point of view there.
So I think we could talk quite a long time about this particular topic, but I'd like to leave a bit of time still to talk about some of your top tips, and I will start with you, Zaidun. So if you could move on. So thank you. That was the end of my questions, but you can see that Zaidun has a top tip for you all. And he believes that you need to have a successful security strategy to bridge the gap between user experience and data protection. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, Zaidun?
Sure. This is about striking the right balance between what the CISO is trying, the Chief Information Security Officer, is trying to achieve, building best-in-class processes and tools that protects the data and respects the regulatory and organizational rules, such as data privacy and data residency. And what also the CIO and the CTO need to focus on supporting the business to achieve, so they can achieve their business goals. So if we reflect on the COVID-19 healthcare crisis and the lockdowns, it made it very prominent that all business users had to work remotely. So application performance was very important, and at the same time, protecting those remote users is very important as well. So how do we protect those users while they can still do their job? Because we need to ensure application performance is at a level where it allows these users to be efficient and capable of doing their job. So for me, I like what we called it during this presentation, the new norm is really about striking that balance. It became paramount for the business, and I realized the value of investing in those technologies, because you need to adapt to cloud. You need to implement certain tools and procedures which ensures amicable and acceptable level of performance for your applications and tools and what have you. So the efficiency of your different functions is there, but also the protection and the rules and policies are well respected and well taken care of. So you protect the data, as we said, at rest or on the move, and ensure everybody is connected with the right tools. So this is, in a nutshell, and I think it's a follow-up to the last question. How do we basically align the different functions within an organization? So the segregation of duties, implementing best-in-class and best practices within the industry, having clear line of sight to the responsibilities of different functions is important to avoid any conflict of interest or overlap, because too much protection can really slow down the business and cause a lot of bottlenecks. And no protection will introduce a lot of vulnerability. So striking the right balance is key in this case.
Thank you, Zaidun. Some very important points there, but I'm going to pick up on the word balance. And it does really reflect, I guess, what Stephen's top tip is here, which is the best security measures have a minimal impact on user convenience and can be effortlessly adopted. So I guess it's a balance of usability versus security. Stephen, can you say a few more words on this for us, please?
Yeah, it is a balance. You can have really good security, but it can be not usable or being used properly by personnel, and then you're doing something, it's not working for the company, because then it becomes a risk for operations. So as Sargun has already said, it needs to be a balance between impact, usability, and security, of course. And we can secure an environment like to the max, but it's not going to be usable after that. Or like, usable or easy usable. So there needs to be a balance.
Definitely. And we're talking about people here, actually, because we've talked a lot about technologies, haven't we? But we're talking about people here. And Salim's tip is about people, but what he's actually pointing out here is the weakest link in the security chain is actually the people. Salim, let's hear a little bit more on that.
Right. I think there are a lot of tips we can give in security, but I think we can boil it very simple to the human element. We're all human, basically. We're all sometimes naive. We are trustful. I mean, we see an email coming in with maybe the name of our CEO with a fake, let's say, domain name, or even the DMARC settings, let's not go technical, are not enabled. And basically, you can spoof email to look alike it's your CEO sending that mail. And basically, you could believe you will click on it. Maybe there's a payload in the Excel file with PowerShell, or there is something like, please fill in the credentials. You will type it in. We don't know even better on that moment. And for sure, not, let's say, skilled staff or security aware people. So that's, again, a topic we said earlier. Security awareness is very important for every part of the organization, every person, whether it's the receptionist towards somebody from operations, it doesn't matter. And then, and just to say as well, what I added there on the human elements, you can have so much investments on all these different high-end security solutions, whether it's firewall, intrusion prevention, cryptography, etc., etc. But if it all boils back to, it's the user ID we want and a password. So I would say, please add maybe two-factor authentication or multiple MFA, multi-factor authentication, to enhance more security things around that user identity. So, yeah.
So thank you, couldn't agree more. So let's not forget the people. However, the last tip, we're going to go back to tools and technology. Candid, you've said, in order to be prepared, increase your visibility and start to automate.
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about all the companies that move to the cloud, but we see that many of them do not really ingest all the data which is generated. So do you actually get those log files? And I'm not just talking about security events, right? Kind of who accessed the data, is it backuped? And all those critical information, you should definitely get those data points. Because in the past, we have seen many attackers being inside the organization for several weeks or even months. And it could have been prevented, as in detected and then a proper response, but very often nobody looked because they didn't have the log files. So I'm getting those data. And then of course, that unfortunately leads to a lot of data, which means you cannot kind of go through it manually. You have to automate it to pick out the 1, 2, 3 events that you need to follow up manually. So it has to be a nice balance. And I agree, awareness and everything is important, but in the end, you should also make use of the technology to help you with an efficient approach.
Yeah, maybe Candid, if I can add on that, Christelle, sorry. I think the automation there is very good, what you say. Example, and I think this is a common use case for all of us. I'm not saying we're all doing it, but we've done it maybe in the past. Basically, we work somewhere. We had built up some content, and that content, like PowerPoints or let's say contacts, sales contacts, whatever, we take that data with us and we go to the next company and reuse it there. I think by the end of the day, this is data theft, basically, or intellectual property, basically. And if you have the good automation to detect, respond, and remediate automatically, then automation is a very key point there, even for these use cases. Yeah, so that's something. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think from what I've heard in terms of those top tips, it goes back to the point somebody made earlier on around having a multi-layered approach, which is obviously incredibly important. So James, we've heard the top tips. I know we don't have much time left, so perhaps I'll just ask one or two questions. I've got a favorite actually that's come through. I love this one. Somebody has said, what is the dream cybersecurity product or feature that you are still waiting for? So I'll just ask a couple of you. So if I were to pick on Candid, because obviously you can't say Acronis is the dream product. I mean, you could do, but
it is, exactly.
It is as dream a product as you can imagine. Is there anything else you could think of, perhaps it's not even been invented yet?
Yeah, I mean, if you go for the philosophical approach, then of course, yes, it would be having systems which are so smart and so secure that they automatically protect you from any danger out there, but also allow you to work, right? Like Stephen said, it should not hinder your normal day-to-day job. So kind of having that security guard angel behind you, solving all the issues for you automatically without any performance hit and any data loss. And yeah, I mean, it's part of my day job to make that dream a reality. So hopefully next time I can present you a solution there, but let's work on it.
I love that dream, and guardian angel, I love that analogy. And I don't think I have any other questions that I think are quite as exciting as that, but perhaps I'll just ask one more question that's come through. Obviously, we were talking about the impact of the pandemic, and perhaps I will ask Stephen, I mean, you've got your own company dealing with security. Is there anything that you've fundamentally changed since we went into this pandemic that you are going to continue doing in the future?
Not directly. We were forced actually to move to more remote work, and that's for us is a risk. So we want to go back to on-site very soon, because we can't go to laboratoriums at the moment because it's a risk. So we have to work remotely, which is also a risk, but that's a risk which is calculated. Other things we implemented are extra procedures. Just because you are further away from the data, you look at it differently and you approach it differently, and you develop procedures to make sure you do it on a correct and secure way. And those things are staying in the organization, mainly procedure and how you access data and work and monitoring data, on a different level.
I think we've completely run out of time there, James. So can I just say thank you very much from our panelists. I thought that was a great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Christelle, for a fabulous job moderating there, and to Saidun, Salim, Stephen, and Candid for your expertise, your experience, and your insight there. Really fantastic stuff. I hate to move on, but we've got a very cool, very brief demo of Acronis CyberProtect 15. This is the premises-based version of the cloud-based Acronis CyberProtect Cloud product that we launched back in April, and has met with great enthusiasm from our managed service provider partners that deliver a big chunk of our technology to market. The other half of our channel equation, of course, is traditional value-added resellers, and this product is very much for them to start offering a suite of comprehensive data protection and cyber protection services that they can manage from a single console and a single agent. Here to show you that very quick 5-minute time frame we've given him is Dan Cardno, who, despite his accent, is actually a senior solutions engineer for Acronis based in the US. Over to you, Dan.
Okay, thanks team. Hello and welcome everyone. We're going to take a few minutes here to explain some of the features of CyberProtect and the real-world applications of them. First of all, for anyone not intimately familiar with the way Acronis provides backup protection, it comes in the form of a plan. A plan is essentially a package of rules that determines what should be backed up and the times and conditions that apply. CyberProtect builds on that and integrates security and controls in the same process using the same look and feel. So here, I'm just going to disable the backup plan selection and talk about some of the new and enhanced features. Before I get into them, let me zoom in a little to help illustrate what I'm talking about. So first of all, we can manage the antivirus and anti-malware components. Here you'll find all of the options and settings you'd expect from such a feature. For instance, we can tune how Active Protection deals with threats. If you're not already familiar with Active Protection, it's a feature that monitors for and determines how we deal with malware attacks. Take the scenario where we notice files being encrypted and renamed, possibly as part of a ransomware attack. Do we want to inform someone on the admin team, stop the process from continuing, or automatically roll back the changes using system cache? To guarantee consistency, anti-tamper controls are built in so that malicious software can't stop or suspend the underlying services in an attempt to circumnavigate and perpetuate the attack. There are, of course, configurable options that relate to real-time protection and the configuration of periodic system scans that extend to the protection of removable hardware, very important in this case. URLs can be filtered either based on predefined categories, such as hacking or gambling, or by adding them individually to the list of exclusions. Here, we can add exceptions to the categories in place, or add URLs in isolation to be blocked. Windows components can be managed through the UI as well. Windows Defender and Security Essentials can not only be configured, but also tracked through the CyberProtect console. Having worked in large, fragmented IT departments in the past, I particularly like the vulnerability assessment and the patch management feature. The vulnerability assessment will check each machine where the plan is assigned, ensure the software installed is up to date, and consequently there are no open doors for malicious software or bad actors. You can choose the scope for assessment and also build conditions into the schedule. For example, ensuring a task is run on startup if it were to miss its original scheduled start for whatever reason. Where there are vulnerabilities found, the patch manager can work to ensure necessary patches are applied and security is maintained. This can be done automatically or as a staged manual process. And we'll see what that looks like in just a second, but also note there is an option to perform a backup prior to applying any patches. The final thing to mention in this section is the data protection map. This is a means to identify any critical file types that may not currently be backed up. The most common use case for this is one that a lot of people are currently experiencing with working from home, where data is being saved to a common folder, and that folder alone is the one being backed up, purely for the purpose of efficiency. The data protection map will identify any files that fall outside of that working directory and could therefore impact production if it were lost. And to illustrate what it looks like when the plan has executed, we can start with the Software Management tab. The Patches selection will show all of the available patches and their approval status. Notice as well how we can also deploy patches on an ad hoc basis, particularly useful in the case of high priority issues. Additionally, you'll see some new widgets on the dashboard. They tell the story of security in one neatly packaged central user interface. Like always, the dashboard will centralize all of the pertinent information into one place, for immediate, color-coded reference to all areas of concern. And finally, I wanted to point out the threat feed. This is such a cool feature to help stay protected against a number of different, often unforeseen dangers. Here, we can see some suggestions for dealing with potential malware and ransomware attacks, where you can review and act on the recommendations given. So, hopefully that gives an insight into some of the useful components. And with that, I'll hand back over to the conference.
Thanks for that, Dan. Thanks for keeping that to a crisp 5 minutes. For our attendees, I hope that gave you a little bit of a flavor of the power of Acronis CyberProtect 15. Please contact us if you're looking for more information about that. I'll also have a link at the end of the conference that points you to 30-day trial that you can always download for take a test spin and play with some of the features yourself. I think that's a great way to do it. All right, we are now getting into the home stretch of the conference here. We have a fantastic second panel for you here that's going to take a look at the issues that we've been the themes of this whole conference: improving cybersecurity, adding automation, reducing costs, but specifically as they relate to the manufacturing industry, which, as we've heard again and again, seems to be a favorite target of cyber criminals. I'm really pleased again to have a fantastic moderator for this event, Mr. Graham Hackland, who's the CIO of Williams Racing, another of our Acronis CyberFit Sports partners. And if you don't know about what Williams does, it might be hard to understand just how much data they move in real time, how much they have to they give us to protect, and how they kind of keep us on our paces. Graham's been at Williams Racing for nearly 7 years, and for 15 years before that in IT leadership roles at Lotus F1. So long time in the Formula One racing business. Really appreciate you taking the time. I'll let you introduce the panel, Graham, so over to you.
That's great. Thanks, James. First, I'd like to introduce Sasha Meyer, CISO of IWC, based in Schaffhausen, quite close to Acronis's global headquarters, actually. Very well-known luxury watch manufacturer. Great watches, Sasha.
Thank you.
In his function, Sasha is responsible for the complete IT and information security at all of IWC's locations. He sets the security standards, assesses the security risks, and implementing countermeasures. IWC has been actively promoting the topics of user awareness, which is really important, and we heard some comments about users earlier that I don't agree with, so hopefully we'll get round to that, as well as cyber intelligence for many years. So welcome to the panel. Next up is David Fuhr, who is head of research for High Solutions AG. They're a German boutique security consultancy. David has a proven track record of finding and chasing down pain points in security programs in IT environments of critical infrastructure operators, what we often refer to as the grid, manufacturing and cloud providers. At High Solutions, he not only created its ICS security consulting service, but focused on disruptive tech from a security and risk standpoint before they're used to breach you, which is the important bit. In 2020, and I really like this, David, he's mostly stopped talking about blockchain, but ponders going back to the beginnings when he was studying quantum computers and organizational psychology. So welcome, David. Next, we got Nick Grebennikov, who's the Chief Development Officer at Acronis, where among other accomplishments, he led the development of the Acronis Cyber Protect product that we just saw demonstrated. He served as Acronis VP of Engineering prior to that. He was the founder and CEO of a mobile games developer and CTO of another cybersecurity company for 5 years. So we're either going to give you the credit or the blame, Nick, for Cyber Protect. So welcome to the panel. And then we have Mohammed Nabil, who is Senior Cybersecurity Solutions Architect and Consultant at Yokogawa, Middle East and Africa, and he's based in Bahrain. He's more than 15 years of experience in the field of IT and OT security, and the first one to mention OT actually, which is really important for us in manufacturing, as well as networking, infrastructure solution implementation and consulting. He's an expert in consulting on the latest cybersecurity solutions, network infrastructure design, and network vulnerability assessment. He's an active participant in the UAE and Oman chapters of ISA Cybersecurity. He's run multiple sessions for the Gulf Downstream Association and many other symposia. So welcome to you all. I saw how Christelle ran out of time, so I'm determined we're not going to. So let's just crack on straight into the first question. I'm going to warn you now, David, I'm going to come to you. So manufacturing has really been a favorite target of ransomware criminals in recent years. So what steps have you taken, David, to help your business, your customers, address this particular malware threat?
Thanks, Graham. Thanks, Acronis, for having me. So we at High Solutions experience the harsh effects of cyber attacks firsthand when we are called on site as incident responders to find and expel intruders and to clean up the mess. So in the case of ransomware, which is the #1 fastest growing threat, according to a lot of number crunches and according to our own experience in critical infrastructure, as well as in manufacturing, especially since attackers have started threatening to leak stolen data as an additional extortion lever recently. So we oftentimes come in too late. And by that, I mean that the infrastructure cannot be restored in a matter of hours. And according to me, one of the reasons is that you not only need a backup of all mission critical systems, but also, and that's the more important part, a tried and practiced method to restore in acceptable time, whatever that is in your sector, in your business, needs to be defined. And with modern production processes, this is all but trivial. So the other reason ransomware is special is that we find that the root causes of these attacks can be manifold, but typically can be linked to some lack of basic cyber hygiene. For example, if we look at the Citrix vulnerability that came up in January with patches for Citrix application delivery controller and NetScale gateway being developed more or less on time, at least fast enough to prevent most major breaches. Right now, as we speak, we're noticing a resurgence of attacks of this one. Right. So it appears that certain attackers groups installed backdoors back in January that went dormant since and have now begun to be exploited. So
David, that's a really important one. And some of the previous panelists talked about that, and some of the Acronis people have talked about that. Once they're in your network, you think you've got rid of them, you think you've recovered all your data, but they're actually still in there. So you're actually seeing that with some of your customers, and that's still a threat.
Yeah. This is actually what we're seeing right now and have been for a while. And this teaches us that cyber hygiene of modern complex environments, like we have them in manufacturing, remains a hard problem in 2020. There's not one silver bullet switch or off-the-shelf product that could magically fix an organization in this respect.
Yeah. Nick, from an Acronis perspective, obviously you're dealing with this ransomware, all the time for customers and with the solutions that you're producing, and obviously what we've seen with Cyber Protect. So what are you seeing in the industry as well? Obviously with the survey that was done, 44% is still quite a high number.
Yeah, you're right. And according to recent research, 77% of cyber attacks, ransomware attacks, were done on systems which had already a security product installed and up to date. It means that even if you already invested in some security solutions, it's actually not enough to be successfully protected against such advanced cyber attacks. And what you need, actually, you need to update your solution with integrated product, which have security, backup, disaster recovery, all integrated, and all components talk to each other. This is the main step which companies and manufacturing industries should do right now.
And David, you seeing that with your customers? They think they've got layers of defense in, but it's still getting through.
Is still getting through because they lack a common an overarching view what's happening in their networks, especially with the dozens, the hundreds of interfaces to supply chain, to the internet, and more products being added that need some kind of network access, cloud management, and so on. And they just lose track of all the ways an attacker could get in.
Yeah, so yeah, really tricky area for a lot of organizations. Mohammed Nabil, if you don't mind, I'm going to just ask you to let us know, some of the areas that you're working in around critical infrastructure. What are you seeing around ransomware and the types of protections that people are having to put in place?
Thank you, Drain. We have seen a lot of instances in the past couple of years, and it's alarmingly increasing on a day-to-day basis. If you ask me to talk on a ransomware perspective, I can talk for an hour, but we have very limited time. And we have to think on an OT perspective, we don't have a single point of fixations. Like we have a lot of, we follow the defense in depth kind of a strategy over here. So we need to have multiple levels of security up over there, because when a ransomware comes in, you're going to lose the control of the plant and the infrastructure. Now, the second thing, we are not going to sit and fix it. Most probably the second thing which is going to happen is an evacuation alarm. That is what is going to happen in the plant environment. So it's a very critical situation what we are going to face, which would be apart from any other infrastructure. Thinking a ransomware attack in a nuclear plant or a gas operation center, the next thing is evacuate, nothing more than that. So it's pretty critical, and I'll be talking about in the next sessions when it comes to it.
Yeah, thanks everyone who have asked to touch on that question. So we're going to move on now, and manufacturing's got some of the highest downtime costs of any industry. So Mohammed Nabil, I'm going to come to you first around this, because obviously this is a big part of what you're looking after. So how do you help your businesses, customers reduce downtime, especially for the real-time process control systems? Those are the OT that you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Asking for a shutdown or a reboot is going to raise a lot of eyebrows in a plant. It's not that easy. It's not that, it's a tough nut to crack. Many infrastructure upgrade happens on a live plant environment. Even for that, we have requested for a shutdown for 2 years, and still we have not even received that. So it's a pretty sensitive question that you have asked. That is a basic difference between an IT and OT infrastructure.
Can I make you feel jealous, Mohammed? We get 2 weeks every year that we shut down our site because there's a Formula One shutdown. So we get to do all sorts of upgrades into. I just wanted to make you jealous. Sorry, carry on.
I would tell you, this year we had some of the planned shutdowns which we were supposed to have it, and we were supposed to have an upgrade on that, which we were awaiting for the past 4 years. And that has been postponed. So think about that. So this is the major demarcation points. See, our definition of security is more or less the same, but our priority changes. That is the difference. If you see on the confidentiality, integrity, and availability triage, our priority is on availability than the integrity and the confidentiality of the data. So, we will be addressing it in a bit different way. As the priority change, to address the most important principle of our industry, which is the availability, we cannot just address this by looking at one aspect of the security. Our OT infrastructure security controls are defined addressing 3 major aspects, which the other speakers have also said: people, process, and technology. Because you don't find an IT-aware person out there. You will be finding a chemical engineer or a mechanical engineer who's running the plant. He won't be aware about the impact of his action. Like I have seen operators saying that, oh, I just, connected my phone to charge it. I am not transferring any data. I have seen that while auditing the systems. I have seen so many times. I'm just charging it. Don't worry. I was surprised to see. So these kind of things happen. So we have the primary thing is like to address that people, process, and technology. A well-trained person without a proper process and a huge investment on technology is not going to give you any result out of there. The same thing, you have a well-trained people and technology, but you don't have a proper process. Again, is going to be another case of vulnerability out there. If you have both, like people and process, but lacking on the technology perspective, again, it's the same. So it's a balance.
I really like what you've said there. Earlier someone said about the humans are the weak point. Actually,
exactly.
All 3 of them can be a strength, right? If you have all 3, people, process, technology, all aligned, it can be a strength. Actually, the human doesn't have to be a weakness.
Exactly. And on the technology perspective, also we divided that into different sectors. Like you need to have solutions to secure. You need to have solutions to defend, to contain, to monitor and manage. As I said, what if there is a possible breach? How are you going to contain it? You need to buy time till that threat reaches to your control system and take over your safety systems. You need to buy time, because the moment the safety systems or the control system is compromised, you don't have time. So you need to be proactive in such a way so that we have a lot of guidelines, we have a lot of best practices, a lot of global standards what we follow to achieve these kind of things. So we will be talking about that on a separate session or something like that on a later stage. So what I'm trying to say here is, even we design the whole infrastructure foreseeing these 4 or 5 major aspects like secure, defend, contain, which is a major aspect. This solution is lacked by most of the customer. I'm having everything, but you don't know the moment your perimeter security is breached, your network is open till the control center, control systems. You don't have multiple levels of security. Yeah. This is where some of the customer lacks. especially on OT, I'm not talking about the IT. This
Yeah.
is from my past experience, which I'm.
Yeah.
So, this is how we try to reduce as much as possible on the footprint of possible cybersecurity breach up over there. And definitely there are standards, guidelines, best practices. Being an OEM vendor, we do have our own practices. We do have our own guidelines, plus the international standards and guidelines, which will help our customer to withstand. Even if there is a breach at one position or one level, you have another levels to contain it, so that the possible non-availability or downtime or whatever is expected will be the minimalized.
I like what you said. You're buying time. That's a really, really good point.
Exactly.
So, I mean,
because as I said,
about...
if my safety system is compromised, the evacuation alarm will pop up. You just have to walk out.
Yeah. I like what we're talking about manufacturing downtime costs. You're saying even planned downtime, is not possible. So imagine unplanned. So thank you for that. We're going to move on to the next question. And
sure.
Sasha, I'm finally going to bring you in, tell us a bit about the previous topics if there's anything you want to raise. But around tech staffing in manufacturing. So plant level support for IT ops and cybersecurity remain a cost. It can be quite complex. How do you help your business to respond to factory floor downtime incidents, whether it's hardware failure, operator error, cyber attack? Give us your thoughts on this.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I think I want to add something to all what the other guys said, because everyone was talking about process, technology, awareness, and I think absolutely right. But the aspect what many people forget is, for example, the awareness needs to be done right, because it doesn't matter of the size of the company, internationally, locally, most of the people just buy a phishing tool, they send out and expect now awareness will happen. That's not the case. What you want to reach is a security culture. This is what you get. And this only works if you do a campaign right. So this is nothing else than good internal communication with good marketing combined. And this needs to be persistent, and it needs to work based on the target group you have and all that stuff. I think this is key here, needs to be mentioned, because it was just la 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 and next one. So that's not the case here. It's not just buying an e-learning and off we go. So this needs, because if the culture and the things are right, you can talk to the people, and then you get action. If they understand why you are doing all this, then you can go ahead and do this. Just to mention this.
Sasha, that's such an important point. Again, earlier when I heard, that the human, if you see your colleagues or if the colleagues of the CISO is a threat, I don't think that's very good. And you've raised the right point there, culture. It's about making sure that they feel part of your security team.
Exactly.
Very good.
And I don't know what someone else said it during the session. They said, yeah, but we are a preventer. No, but this is exactly, if you build a culture and you as a CISO go to the business and work with them hand in hand, and after the third project, they will recognize you as a partner. And if you are not, blocking them or being pain in the ass, sorry for my words, but if you're an enabler, they will come in a last minute project. Don't do bad, talk to them and try to find a solution and try to establish a process. I can tell you that after 8 years being here in the company, we have done, I would say in a good way, now we get 85% of all projects in the beginning. There's always some projects which came last minute for sure, or some, as we call it, U-boat project, which pops up at the end, but that's okay, you can deal with that, but this is what you want. And this comes then to this question here, because if there is, for example, a new machine coming into the manufacturing site, we should know it before. Why? Because you can ask questions like backup. You can ask like how to support them. We can do extra work here on the factory floor to, for example, do an image of the hard disk when it arrives. Because if there's an attack, there's an hardware failure or whatever, we have a backup. We have a backup of the machine, and all this is extra service we do. And the people know each other, they can work, and for sure, what we have done as well is, we also know about the ransomware stuff, and that's really an issue. In our case, it's a bit special, but I'm sure all the other guys in the OT environment also know it. The problem of the problem, the core of the problem is the manufacturer. Why? Because they're delivering machines which are with Windows XP, they have, or it's an ICS control with admin password. All that stuff, there's no baseline, there's no standard for all this. And this is why OT is a hot topic. And then what we have done here, we have built up a kind of blueprint for the group. We are belonging to a group called Richemont. Richemont is one of the big luxury players on the market worldwide, owning 20 brands or something. And we're working right now on a really manufacturing which are AI driven. We heard it a couple of times. What we have done is actually to do a section of our manufacturing site to cluster different clusters. And on top of it, we have an AI engine, which actually monitors 20/7 and gives us an indication or raises an incident if there is any suspicious activity. However, this
you said 20/7. I just want to make sure it's 24/7. Otherwise, you've got 4 hours.
No, we are 4 hours off. So now I'm just kidding. It's 24/7. You're right. Thanks for correction. But no, but what I'm trying to say is that, I mean, we also have a problem of resources, and of course we are running together with Wishmo a SOC. However, you need visibility in that one, and OT is in special environment with old protocols, unmanaged environment, and so on. So what we have done is to build up an structure, where we go to segment all the different lines and machines according to the processes. And on top of it, you have artificial intelligence, which gives you visibility into this. This is the only way at the moment to get control of the different areas. So what our problem is now, we're talking, or our solution is, we're talking to the vendors. We start talking to the vendors for the major stuff. Of course, when you go to Siemens or to the big players, then it's a different story. But we have special machines from small manufacturing or solution providers from somewhere in Switzerland. These are watchmakers, 5 people creating special machines with fancy solutions to save time and money. So it's difficult for them to implement security. So we try to give them a hand.
You lay it on top. Yeah, that's great. David, just before we move on to the next question, presumably you are an extension of the security teams in your customers' organization. So when it comes to staffing, are you helping to transfer knowledge? How do you guys handle that?
Yeah, basically it comes down to knowledge in the end. So what we're trying to build with our customers together is some kind of multi-layered model. So we go in there once in the beginning, or regularly sometimes, to educate manufacturers to do the right thing in advance. And this is mostly logging, and using the basic detection mechanisms that they already have in the endpoints, in networking devices. Next level is the security teams that they have on-prem. So they need to be able to do basic preparation security programs with the most important elements. Can be regular penetration tests of critical interfaces, not of everything on site, but of the most typical ways an attacker would come in. Business continuity and crisis management drills. And then we offer second, or better, even third level response capabilities that most manufacturers are not able to sustain on their own economically and talent-wise, and hope that we never have to come in.
Yeah. Thanks, David. So we're going to move on to our last question. Nick, I'm going to give you a chance to tell us, from Acronis's perspective and from your experience. I mean, you got wide experience in a number of industries. So how and where are you helping customers, and even internally in Acronis, how are you helping to apply automation to cybersecurity and IT operations?
Clearly, we can't fight against cyber attacks right now without automation, right? Automation is applied on different levels, starting from security labs and virus labs of your antivirus vendor, where a lot of automation is applied to detect new viruses, new ransomware samples. Going to endpoint machines, where automation is key to correlate events happening in the system. And going to automation of analysis of what's going on in the network overall, not just on one endpoint, but correlate events from one endpoint, second endpoint, next server, mail server, and such, to be able to understand that the organization under targeted attack, for example. And such solutions appear on the market, but what all of them they miss is they're missing the element of full protection, right? Every security product will give you 99.9, maybe 98, but still not 100% of detection. If you go and look at any antivirus tests right now on the market, you will have this 99 point something, which is definitely great and decrease the surface of attack a lot, But at the same time, there is 0.1% of cases where your security product will not be able to help you. You need additional protection layers, and these layers should help you to remediate and recover from the attack. And we believe that the only solution which can really automate all the security, all the protection for different industries is integrated solution. When your backup product understands events from your security product and can actually take some files from backup when your heuristic-based security component is detected ransomware attacks, right? Most of security products, they just use some cache to recover data from during this behavioral detection, but only Acronis has this integrated backup, and when our security component detects the attack, our backup component provides the data to recover immediately from the attack. At the same time, it's very important concept in the world of cybersecurity is self-defense, right? You need to protect the protector. If your product can't protect itself, it can't protect anything, right? So this is the same for backup right now. Most of ransomware creators, they try to penetrate and delete all backups they can reach. In this situation, defensing of backups is critical component of the overall solution, and it also should be integrated and automated without any additional manual steps. But if we go and look about thinking about a global situation, not only security and backup, but for example, checking vulnerable applications and patching of applications. Most of the cases when you patch your systems, you have a good situation, right? But in some cases, say the same 0.1%, you can have an environmental issue. When you apply a new patch on your system, the whole system will not boot or will crash, right? It's a rare case, but it can happen. And imagine it happened on some production machine, or it's like machine of your CEO or C-level person. In this situation, you need to have, the best way is actually to have your backup and immediately recover from the latest snapshot of your backup. But in most solutions, you actually configure your backup in one place and patch management in another place. And in this situation, there is no automation. The only solution which can help you to immediately make a slice in your backup before you make a patching is Acronis CyberProtect. This is why I believe full automation is the key to provide protection against current cyber threats.
Thanks, Nick. That's a really important point. Mohammed Nabil, I'm going to ask you particularly on OT, because I still think that's a really important point for manufacturing. Are you seeing much in the way of automation solutions out there with some of the critical infrastructure? You always get the feeling that OT gets left a little bit behind in terms of automation. What are you seeing? You're on mute.
Sorry, it is. See, we don't see that we are like kept left apart or something like that. But we have some sort of restrictions and limitation. We are still talking about virtualization in OT industry. I'll give you some of the examples. I would say like artificial intelligence, adopting artificial intelligence to OT industry. I'll give you with an example. There was an ammonia leak in a plant. Okay. And the users and the operators were a bit frustrated. He came to log in the machine, HMIs, and he started typing. Because of the frustration, the ammonia leak, he was not able to open the eyes. He typed his password thrice. And 3 times he typed it wrong. So what happened, there was an AI-enabled agent which was there. He quarantined the user for some time and he had to do a retina scanning when he was not able to open his eyes because of the ammonia leak. So we are still concerned about the operations or the availability of the plant rather than going behind the latest adoption of cybersecurity. We need to prove this actually happened in one of the plants. So it is not easy for us to adopt to the latest. When a guy is exposed to an ammonia leak and where he was not able to open his eyes and he was having a breathing problem, he comes to shut down the valve and again he's quarantined and he's asked to do a retina scanning. What would be the situation? So this is the challenge what we face on an OT perspective. Whenever we, even for an Active Directory point of view, we always do like 3 times the password is being entered in the machine. If it is wrong, you will be asked to do a second level of authentication, which is not possible in an OT infrastructure. Similarly, like I will agree to Sasha on one comment of asking like, the awareness on the, I would like to ask like every people, like how often in an OT industry, we always ask everybody to attend a safety training on a quarterly basis. How often do you give a security awareness training to the OT peoples? And one more thing, how often do you give your users to create a proper password? When we go for a cyber audit, I always write some passwords in the whiteboard itself saying that I can give you a guarantee that one of the passwords will be there.
Yeah.
And it's proven, like how often we do train our own employees to create a strong password. You don't know, like most of the 99% of nowadays it started. So we are slowly stepping in. It's not that purposefully somebody have put us behind. We are still learning.
I'm hoping
because
eventually we're going to get rid of passwords. I hope passwords are a bane of their life, right? We've got to get rid of passwords. I'm really sorry. We're running late on time, so we're gonna move on now to the tips, and we'll give each of you a chance to just share with everyone, some of your thoughts around this topic. We've been talking about evolving from reactive to proactive defense against downtime. So Sasha, I'm gonna come to you first.
Sure. So yes, the sentence use AI as your watchdog to find incidents in the flood of data, especially in the manufacturing. This is key. Why? I mean, first of all, in this OT environment, you are not able to start scanning, doing vulnerability assessment and this. If you started, we tried all that a couple of years ago, it will crash. Everything will crash. We started this, climate was done, machine was done. So this doesn't work. So what you do is you go on the network level and you go to the network traffic. And now you need something to analyze. So what we have done was testing a couple of different solutions to use AI, machine learning, to see vulnerabilities, attacks, strange things in the network, because you have to take it from there. Why we're doing this? Because, okay, it takes 3 to 4 weeks to understand what is normal, what is a baseline, what is here. But then you have a 24/7 monitoring up and running. And if there's something suspicious, you will get an incident. This you can't solve. You don't have much headcounts. This is the only way to get all this data. It's really a flood of data. And the CM is nice and good, but you need machine learning, as I call it, as a watchdog. You're the security guy, but you need to sleep and to eat and have a family. You need a watchdog to actually support you. And when he's barking, you need to check what's wrong, right? And this is, in my point of view, AI.
Those 4 hours of the day when you're asleep.
Exactly. Now I have a watchdog which takes over the 4 hours and take it from there. Okay. No, but I think it's really a supporting service which shouldn't be underestimated, especially in the OT environment, because there's really fundamental basic problems from a vendor side, from a people side, and process we can manage, but the vendors are really the big core problem here. We're not talking about IT, but in the OT environment, that's really 90 style or even from early 90 years. So then in the 90s.
Thanks,
so you're welcome.
Yeah, appreciate that. David?
Yeah, so my takeaway point is this. So we love our manufacturing customers because of all the sectors we cater to. They're among the best prepared when it comes to availability and also to integrity of processes as far as safety is concerned, at least. But there's one caveat.
Oh, you've gone on mute. You've gone on mute, David. That's it.
Sorry. Okay. And also when it comes to integrity of processes as far as safety is concerned, there's one caveat. Manufacturing has always traditionally prepared against statistical technical failures. And unfortunately, cyber is different. So attackers will go after the weakest players and after the weakest links in their environments. So for example, just adding more systems, more redundancies will not save you from an attack on your integrity. It might in fact worsen the problem even. So the chance that I see here, we as a security community, meaning operators and users, consultants, service providers, and also vendors, maybe not the vendors that are trying to sell only snake oil, but like the trustworthy vendors, that we can learn systematically from the incidents and near misses that we see to build solutions that are both more resilient and at the same time more easily manageable. Because I believe that the two, resiliency and streamlinedness, can only go hand in hand.
That's a really good point. Learning from near misses. I don't think enough of that is done. Really good point. Thank you. Nick, over to you.
You will not be surprised with my tip. Yeah, it's about integrated protection. And indeed, we have not covered many aspects of the value of integration, but I am sure this is the main thing IT people can do in infrastructure organizations to learn and try to use such solutions and benefit from them.
Thanks, Nick. That's really good. Mohammed Nabil?
Okay, see, as what we're talking about is the different solutions which gets adopted in the OT industry. What happens in the OT industry is like you have a lot of solutions, but the problem is there is no single source of responsible person to read and understand proactively and take actions. This is one of the major challenge. So it's like you have everything, secure, defend, contain, and monitor, but to manage these things, to you proactively understand, I've got reports from my IPS, IDS, NMS, WhatsApp, Gold, everything is there, but it's in different platforms. The integrated platform is going to give the administrator the real, real force to enforce the security policies and take proactive decisions. So you should have a proper management system of the security for whatever solutions you have. That's a tip which I want to give it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So I have got a couple of questions that have come in. So I'm now going to surprise you all. And in fact, Sasha, I'm going to come to you for this first one. It's something that I'm currently looking at. And in fact, I think either tomorrow or later in the week, I've got a call with a cyber insurance company. So is it something that you guys have thought about? What's your take on cyber insurance to protect against losses and threats from things like ransomware? Is it something you've looked at?
I know on a group level, at Richemont level, they looked at it, and I think it depends on the conditions, and I mean, for sure this is not free of charge. Well, one of my lessons learned here is, I mean, they will do an audit. They need to see your status in terms of vulnerabilities, in terms of organization, in terms of resources. So they will check you on different pillars, and then depends on the quality of your response, how much you will have to pay. So
yeah,
it's a traditional risk approach, huh?
Absolutely. David, are you seeing any of your customers, using cyber insurance?
As it happens, we act as one of the auditors of one cyber insurer, so we get to see the other angle. And one good, well, it obviously depends if you need such a thing, and you can only insure certain losses, like not on your reputation, not on safety issues. Human life cannot be paid back, for example. But one good thing that it can bring is that a number is put, a cost is put to not doing cyber hygiene, not having a security program. And sometimes this gives you, that means the CISO, the security organization in your org, a better visibility. So it could be an interesting idea to get some quotes for a cyber insurance, and once the numbers are on the table, you can start talking whether this makes sense, or some more investment in your own cyber program would even be the better choice.
Yeah, and Mohammed Nabil, are you seeing anything with the industries that you're in with cyber insurance?
Exactly. A lot of things, because there are a few aspects which is associated to the ransomware or any threat attack in the OT perspective. Because as David was saying, human factor, there is one more factor which we have to address, is the environmental oil spills and all these things, any explosions. So we have to address that also. So there is definitely an insurance which goes to each and every customer. But one thing is, if you invest the premium on the cybersecurity infrastructure, the premium on the insurance will be less. That's how the audit, when you do a proper investments on cybersecurity, and they undertake audits on a yearly basis, they see how the developments has been done, how the fixes has been done. Based on that, your premium will be reduced. We have seen that. So every year we have to undergo support the customer to reduce or to engage with them to do the audits and all those things. So it's there. It's there everywhere. Yeah.
So we've got time for one more question, and I don't think we can have a panel without mentioning the pandemic, and especially for manufacturing. So, at Williams, obviously there was no Formula One racing for 3 or 4 months. Manufacturing was sent home initially. We had to make changes to our factory and our facilities to make sure that our operators were safe. I'm interested to know, and the question here is about, how is your company or clients for some of you, has there been a struggle to maintain operations during the pandemic? So Sasha, do you want to start with this one?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, first of all, it was about reducing risks. I mean, seriously, in the beginning, it was like, you know, we had to split between the production and the office stuff, I would say. There was a lockdown even in IWC, I would say. Why? It was simply to reduce the risk. Huh? And I mean, the office staff actually was up to 100% at home, working from home, but then you had still issues in you know, capacity from remote workers. There were some still not migrated. There were some people which had just a table phone, so you had to migrate them. Organize a headset. I would say to organize a headset was also a challenge, like to get a mask or disinfection stuff. You know, it was exactly. Yeah. It was really a challenge. So this was actually really the problem. And then I mean, these are all the measures you actually have to organize and to do. And then from a production side, you also need to set up all the measures in order to reduce risk, you know, with the canteen and all this. It was a simple risk management, I would say. And these were actually the main stuff. It was very hectical, very under pressure. And I'm also in the crisis team for IWC. So there was a lot of things coming together. And you always had to be in front of the curve, you know, always try to think ahead. And I think we've done well so far, to be honest, but it was tough, yeah.
I think we had a similar experience to you. Those who could work from home, we sent home. We increased our capacity for remote connections and tried to protect manufacturing, stop people walking through the plant, put red zones in that people weren't allowed to go in, shared areas, like you mentioned, you know, restaurants and canteens are a problem. So yeah, that probably covers it. And with us out of time, I'd like to hand back to James.
Thanks again to our panelists, Mohammed Nabil, Nick, David, Sasha, for a fantastic job. 30 minutes is obviously not enough to plumb the depths of your experience and experiences at the front lines. So we really appreciate your time. For the rest of the audience, I'm going to just rip through a few things that I'd like you to know about, some, I think, valuable and complementary resources. First of all, the Acronis Global Cyber Summit, which is barely a month away. We've already got several thousand registrants, fantastic lineup of speakers, workshops, educational opportunities, a very cool interactive platform, and it's free and you can access it from any device. So I encourage you to take a look at our registration site here and see if you might find something over the course of 3 days that's worth your while. I expect you will. I brought some facts to your attention from the Acronis Cyber Readiness Report. This is very fresh research, again, from several thousand business and IT leaders and their responses to the pandemic. That is also complimentary. Please go to that and download that. In the Acronis Resource Center at acronis.com, you'll find a ton of case studies and white papers. I just highlighted a few that are focused on manufacturing because that was a key highlight of today's conference, but you'll find a ton of other great resources if you're looking to get some understanding of what Acronis is doing in your specific industry or set of applications. The industry analysts have been very kind to us over the past few months, particularly around the Acronis Cyber Protect story that you heard a little bit about today. Major recent reports from big research houses like Forrester Research, my old employer, and as well as testing reports from companies like DGIC that show how well our anti-ransomware and other cybersecurity features perform against the competition. We encourage you to kick the tires on Acronis Cyber Protect. Best way to gain some confidence that it can do what you need it to do. And that free complimentary trial is always available for 30 days at no charge. All right, I'm going to run one very quick poll here and to get your feedback. It helps us make create better events like this. So if you would please respond to that poll and give us a little feedback on the content, our keynote speakers and panels, and also the way we've communicated to you about the event. While that's running, I'll close with a note about the Acronis Cyber Foundation. This is our nonprofit arm that builds schools in emerging economies around the world. I know these are hard times for many of us, but if you're inclined and you have the wherewithal, we would really appreciate a donation to that. With that, I'd like to thank everybody for our time. I know we ran a little bit long today. I thank you all who hung in for staying with us to the end. We hope you'll join us again for another virtual conference from Acronis soon. In the meantime, be safe, be secure, be well, wear a mask, everybody. Thanks so much. We'll see you again soon.